Hello, everyone. Welcome. Oh, I just love seeing all your faces, and it's so beautiful to come together. And these events have really become just such a touchstone for my heart and my happiness and my balance in our beloved USM community with our beloved USM skills and tools. So I just had to take a minute and say I love you all and thank you for coming before I introduced this evening's wonderful event, which, as many of you know, is for the grad community and newcomers to our community alike. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to tonight's event. Change your lens, change your life. The domino effect of what you believe, you perceive, and you receive. I, for one, am so excited about tonight's topic. I can't wait to hear wisdom on this from our beloved teachers, Drs. Ron and Mary Holnick, who I will, without further ado, turn this evening over to. Mwah.
Hi, Eliza. Well, thank you so much, always for your joy, your loving, and effervescence. And welcome to everyone that has joined us so far. We anticipate this number could easily go to 500 or over. We had, I think, almost 550 RSVPs for this evening.
Yeah.
And this topic has really been fun to prepare, and we're just looking forward to a joyful evening and to our time together.
So, shall we start?
Yes.
Okay. Which we will do like we start every USM event, and that is by calling ourselves forward into the spirit that is the essence of us all. So, Lord God of all creation, we ask just now that this room that we're in and all of the rooms that you are all in be filled with the light and sound of love. We ask that only that which is for the highest good of all concerned be brought forward. And if there be any, let's just call it negativity, any thoughts or upset or disturbance you might have inside, we just place it in the light and ask that it be released and allow it to go back into the nothingness from whence it came. And we are just so grateful for this opportunity to come together in this special way. And for this time together, we give our thanks. So be it.
And we'll also move into a 5-minute peace meditation. A beautiful opportunity to focus your awareness in your heart, in the presence of love, which is your essential nature. And I invite you to breathe in those divine emanations of living love, breathing them into all levels of your consciousness and also every cell in your body. And at each exhale, I invite you just to release any tension, any pressure, any concern or worry, anything that may have been troubling you, to just release it into the light, bringing yourself present in this luminous light of living love. And as you focus your awareness in your heart, I invite you to become aware of a beautiful purple light, and also a beautiful golden light. And that this purple and golden light not only is filling you, surrounding you, and protecting you, it is also radiating from you. And these beautiful strands of purple and golden light are connecting each of our hearts with all those who are gathered here and all those who will be joining us as the evening unfolds. Within our hearts, we experience the oneness, the connection that residing in the loving brings. And in that loving, there's also the presence of peace. We know that peace is always present, and regardless of situation or circumstance, we can move to that place of peace, the presence of peace, the presence of love. And as we gather here this evening, I invite you to join me in just visualizing this beautiful tapestry of luminous purple and gold light, enfolding not only all of us that are gathering here together this evening, but also the entire planet, that this beautiful light is simply enfolding it in its purple and golden rays, not only enfolding the planet, but also all humanity, all life forms. And we ask that a special blessing of healing grace be extended to all those who are challenged at this time, perhaps challenged with a health condition or the health condition of a loved one, challenged by some personal situation or circumstance. And we know that in this spirit of love, so many things can be lifted and cleared as we simply place them into this luminous light, asking for Spirit's assistance, guidance, and healing grace. So be it.
So be it.
You ready?
We're starting? You're up
Yes.
for it now?
Yes. All right. Well, our topic this evening, as Eliza said, is change your lens, change your life. The domino effect of what you believe, what you perceive, and what you receive. So we're going to begin this evening with a short PowerPoint.
But wait.
Oh, you want to go ahead?
Yes, I'd
Please,
like to
by all
say
means.
something here.
Good.
So this is a very interesting evening because it's arguably the largest one of these kinds of events we've had. And there are many new people that really don't know very much about what we do at USM. And we thought that what we would start with is a brand new PowerPoint that we just really created for this evening. That's kind of like, it'll be a review for those of you who are grads. It'll be new information for those of you who this will be new information for. But we felt that it was important so that you'd have some place to start from where you would be able to get a sense of what it is that we're talking about. Because if you're not familiar with this kind of information, you could spend a lot of time wondering, well, what do they mean by that? What do they mean by that? So we're going to do a little short presentation for you. Hopefully it'll be a review or new for those of you for whom it's new. Okay?
Yes. And the the PowerPoints are on a handout that's been posted in the chat. And so you can download those. And there are some lines next to each PowerPoint slide on the handout so that if you want to make notes, you can. And one of the ways you can use the handout is as Ron shares each of the slides to reflect on, how does this relate to me? How does this relate to the experience that I'm having today or in the recent past? And perhaps make some notes about that. After the PowerPoint, we're going to open it up for Q&A, question and answers, and we're going to be inviting sharing both from students, current students and grads, as well as those of you who are new.
Okay, so here we go. So you have slide number 1 there, USM Worldwide Community Gathering. Change your lens, change your life. The domino effect of what you believe, you perceive, and you receive. So what are they talking about? What do they mean by that? So the first thing that we'll take a look at is a quote from David Hawkins, who was a very, very well-known psychiatrist. I think he had the largest psychiatric hospital in New York, and one day he just got in his truck and drove west and wound up in Arizona and didn't go back again. So one of his best known quotes is this one: perception is edited observation. So let's really look at that. We want to really be clear with our words, so when we say something, you guys have a sense of what it is that we're talking about, and we're not being unclear. So when we look out and we see things out in the world, whether it's on the TV or out in the world or however, we are observing. We are observing. Up until that point, that's all we're doing. We're just looking at what's going on out there. And we're saying, that's interesting, and that's interesting. But within, I think David Hawkins put it at a 10,000th of a second. That's a pretty quick time. The part of our consciousness that is in charge of this turns that observation into what is called a perception. In other words, we internalize it in our minds and we make something of it. So perception is edited observation. And so that raises the question, well, who does the editing? If what I perceive, which is what I make of things from what I'm observing, who is doing that editing? And the answer to that question is your ego. Your ego. That part in your consciousness that does your thinking, that does all of this editing. We'll have more to say about that as we go. Based on what? If you're going to edit something, you have to have some criteria upon which you base your editing on what. And the answer to that question is your personal beliefs. Your personal beliefs. Wow, that's pretty amazing. So if two people see the same thing, they may have a very, very different thing that they're going to say about it based upon their personal beliefs. And oh my God, if you ever wanted to see an example of this in action, just look at what's going on in the world these days. Who does the editing? Your ego. Based on what? Your personal beliefs. And what determines your personal beliefs? That is a core question. And spiritual psychology, from our perspective, is one of the systems that deals with that. And the answer is your spiritual curriculum. Let me be clear. That would mean that I came in with that. I'm wired to see things in a particular way. Well, that's a question. That's a good question. So let's take a deeper look at that. Just what is spiritual curriculum? And spiritual psychology principle number 4 says it this way. We are not human beings with souls. We are souls using a human experience for the purpose of awakening. And awakening means remembering our essential nature, remembering that which we truly are. Very important principle. There are 33 principles. We're just going to go over and review a couple of them that are real basic that we thought would be a good way to look at this. So, okay, let's take a look at this. Well, how does this happen if we're souls using a human experience for the purpose of awakening? We observe using our egos. How does this all go together? Well, let's take a look at it. Each of us has 2 ways of relating within our being. There's the ego's way and our soul's way. So let's start with the ego sees the world. So if you're looking out from the perspective of your ego, and remember, within a 100th of a second or something, you're going to turn that, you're going to make something of that. So things happen, and immediately the ego either has a positive spin on it or a negative spin on it. If it has a positive spin on it, you look at it and you say, oh, wow, that's a great thing. And I'm happy because that event happened. But if your ego has a negative spin on it, it says that's a wrong thing, that's a bad thing. And when we have that perspective, we then move into, well, I'm upset because that happened. It could be exactly the same thing. And Mary and I were talking about that this morning. Anytime, just go into a casino in Las Vegas, and you're going to see some people who are very happy because their number came up. And then other people who are kind of upset because their number came up. It's like there's no middle ground. But we're here to tell you there is a middle ground. We actually were, many years ago, were there at a crap table, and there was a woman who was putting, I remember $100 or $1,000 chips down, and one after the other. This woman could not have been more bored. She was just passing time and could not care less which way it went. All right, so in the ego perception, whether you go positive or negative, you're into the process of judging. That leads to actions or choices that are biased, restricted, and unclear, because you're going to be motivated by whether you're going for a positive and you get it or not. So this is how the ego sees and perceives.
And the ego tends to have very strong ideas about right doing and wrongdoing, about good and bad. And so as a result, when we experience ego positions within our own consciousness, it can be a very strong kind of positionality. And this is often why it's difficult or challenging for people to make a shift in consciousness because of the positionality that the ego holds.
And as spiritual psychology 22 states, experiences you judge, you attract. They tend to proliferate, repeat, and multiply. Why would that be? Why would that be? Well, if we're here to learn and grow, then the things we respond to negatively, we haven't yet learned from because we're still responding to them negatively. And so you will attract more of those. Your own soul will attract more of those to you so that you get to work on that. And people wonder, why do they seem to have the same experiences happening over and over and over? Well, you attract them because you haven't yet learned from them. And this is a lot of what spiritual psychology is all about.
So an example of this that I think makes it easy to see is something that we could speak of as serial relationships. It's like, here I am, I'm looking for my life partner, and yet I seem to keep having the same relationship over and over and over again, just with different people. And at some point, maybe I begin to catch on, oh my gosh, the common denominator in these relationships is me. So what is it in me that is attracting this pattern in a relationship?
And again, the important thing is to remember so that you can master this situation once and for all. So is there an alternative? And if so, what is it? And of course, yes, there is, because not only is there the way that the ego sees, let's take a look at how the soul sees. Well, the way the soul sees is things simply happen. It has learned to not divide them into positive and negative. It just sees everything objectively. It sees it with neutral observation. And that's why one of the prominent roles in our work here at USM is the development of the neutral observer facility. And when the soul sees that way, it has acceptance, it has compassion, it has peace, it has equanimity. And this kind of objective evaluating leads to actions and choices that are neutral, balanced, and clear. The more that someone lives in their soul awareness, the more they will live their lives with this system in place. And what else to say about it?
So it's not really a system. It's like the soul is an essence.
Right.
It is your authentic nature, your true self. And in the work that we do, we often quote what the Course in Miracles has to say, and it's also sometimes attributed to Rumi. Our task is not to seek for love, but to seek and find all the barriers that we've built against it. And then we add to that and to dissolve them. And as we dissolve them, what begins to emerge really is the radiance of the soul essence within each person. And we often speak of that as the authentic self.
And as we say in spiritual psychology, principle 25, how you relate to an issue is the issue. Or how you relate with yourself while you go through an issue is the issue. If you go through it with peace and equanimity, it's no problem. You just make your choices based on what seems appropriate to you, and that's the end of the game. So how you relate to the issue is the issue. It's also the opportunity. So you have a choice here. We can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or, as Abraham Lincoln said, because thorn bushes have roses. You could go either way. So here's the choice for your consideration. Do you want to live your life looking at rose bushes who have thorns and look for the blessing, or from the perspective of thorn bushes that The other one.
Is there some reason why the other photo on the slide isn't coming
Oh,
up?
I
Oh,
thought
there
it
it
was.
is.
There it is.
Yes, yes.
That's the other choice for your consideration.
So that's a picture that was taken in our garden, and I'm holding the rose, enjoying so much that thorn bushes have roses.
And I'm obviously holding a rose bushes that have thorns and not enjoying it all that much at all. So if you get the essence of what we're talking about, you're going to go through life facing the things that your own spiritual curriculum has brought you in here to face. That's why you're here. So you're either going to learn how to treat it as a thorn bush with a rose or a rose bush with, and that is what spiritual psychology is all about. We should call it rose bush.
Well, I'm not sure it
Psychology.
would
Do you
really
think?
translate.
No?
I'm
You
not
don't
so
think so?
sure.
All right. So you understand what we're saying. That's your choice. So, is someone going to talk about this? Or are we going to talk
Later. I mean, I think this is just to let new people know that we are scheduled to offer the Soul Centered Living One program online beginning in February. We're very excited about this. For almost the past 40 years, our programs here at USM have been live and in person. Students from around the world and across the United States have come to the campus itself in order to participate in the programs. But this year, due to COVID-19, it was necessary for us to translate what we had been doing in person to online. And oh my goodness, what an incredible process this has been. And we are just in such joy about the power of the spiritual energy field, the ability for the work to be done online in ways that the students communicate to us are at least as powerful as what they experienced in the live format.
All right, so let's go back to normal format, Mike.
All right.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is we're going to open it up for some Q&A. We're going to ask that you start with your name and request that you really go to the heart of what it is that you would like to share. If there is a question, we encourage you to go to the question, and we will do our best to work with as many people as possible here this evening. And just know you're all welcome to share. And it's really fun. They're going through the screen now, showing us some of your faces. And we're just delighted to see all of you. All right, so let's start with Lynn.
Lynn Dickinson.
Yes, thank you for calling on me and for doing this. This is so appreciated, these events. I really get a lot out of them. I have both a light request and a question, please. And my light request tonight is for my husband, who in the last 4 days has been moved to 2 different facilities on an emergency basis. And tomorrow I'm supposed to sign papers for hospice care for him. And I would appreciate a little light to that process, please, for grace and ease. And
yes, to you both, Lynn, and to this
Thank you.
process. Light for the highest good. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And then my question for that is, I've noticed when I'm in the neutral observer mode, I've noticed that I can focus my attention in ways that, on this whole, situation, in ways that either feel more neutral, or ways that make me feel like crying, or ways that make me feel relief, and like editing perception. And I don't know exactly, the goal, I guess, is like,
The goal meaning the goal.
Well, inside in consciousness, it's like I can edit my perception around this event. But like I feel like crying and I don't
Yeah.
want to be crying, you know?
No, you want to be true to what your experience is. So the information about edited perception is not such that we control our experience, but more such that we learn that we have the experience of duality. We have a mind and emotions, and that's part of our humanity. And it's important to accept our humanity. And it's also helpful if you're aware of and learn to accept your own divinity. But I think it's very natural and understandable, Lynn, that you would have sadness, that there would be tears, that you would feel grief and a sense of loss, and perhaps there are other emotions too. And I just encourage you, it's important to acknowledge those feelings, to accept those feelings, to make them okay. Grieving it's a natural process. Grieving is part of how we release attachment to that which we love, and where there's a sense of perhaps anticipating the loss.
Yeah, definitely.
See, the distinction that you want to make, it's not that you don't have feelings. It's not that you don't experience what you would normally think you would experience. It's that you accept it rather than judge it. That's the key. You can in because I know you guys so well. When I look at you, and I think of Aspen, and I think of Clyde and Wanda, it brings up sadness inside of me. But I don't judge it. I accept that that's what's going on, and that is part of everybody's curriculum to work with that. It's the key is thou shalt not judge. Whoever said that in the beginning was very, very, very wise. Don't judge.
And the first law of spirit really is acceptance. Accepting what is, and accepting our own either reaction or response to what is. This is a huge shift, Lynn. And I think about both you and Clyde and your years in the classroom. And I can remember the two of you when we would be sitting in trio format, and you were in different trios, but it might be that you and he both were leaned back in your chairs, even though you were in different trios back to each other. And the two of you were just very connected. And I also remember all the years that both of you have been in service here at USM as well.
Thank you. That helps. Thank you.
Please give our love to Aspen.
Yes. And no, we are holding you and Clyde and Aspen and this process in the light. And this can really be a beautiful time within your own consciousness, Lynn, a time of experiencing the depth of loving and the beauty of the transition process, but also that sense of his passage into spirit, and that represents a very significant change here.
How old is Aspen now?
At the end of this month, she'll be 23.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think when we graduated, she was 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Anything else, Lynn?
No, thank you. That was very helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
bet.
you. Thank you. Well, let's call on someone who's new to USM. Mitchell.
I don't know why, but I knew you were going to call on me. Hey, Ron. Hey, Mary.
Hi.
Hi.
I been dealing with. I have a couple of things, but I'm just going to see what. One thing is on the outer level. The last couple of years, I've been working in film for like 25 years, and actually more, but the last 25 doing in New York, and so the whole between just maybe be aging and the production managers, when I make jokes, they go, "What is that referring to?" They just look at me like, you never saw the A-Team? It could be anything, but I work in television, film production. So like, but what's happened is that my business just like got pulled out like a rug from under me, and the COVID, like, well, by the time COVID hit, I just felt like, oh, good, I have company now. Because like a lot of us, business has been slow for a lot of people, but this is like we just went to ground zero stop. And which is the good part is I've been doing MS Swan and doing a lot of inner work, and I've been really aware of what's come forward in all that, getting past all the stories, that I've been looking at the fact that there's a part of my, like, I get like really clear, clean, spiritual directive, but I also get like a resistance, like, it's like a big wrestling match, like one of those classic like movie kind of wrestling matches between the devil and God kind of thing. But I'm really feeling like I'm not allowing the love that I experience. I mean, I have a lot to be really joyful about, and a lot of good things in my life, but just like inside of me, I don't really take it in. And I'm always like, my mind is very sharp and critical. I feel like I've like, just have like built up some kind of like like an inner dialogue with myself that's not working, and I'm really trying to heal that and be more full with the traveler and love and God within inside of me.
One of the most foundational soul center basic skill that we teach at USM, Mitchell, is something that we call seeing the loving essence.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing the loving essence. And in its most essential form, it really is a practice of seeing with the eyes of your heart. And when you're with other people, to really look for what's beautiful in them, to look for the spark of the divine in them. I had an amazing experience of this last Saturday. I had gone to my hairdresser, and
What? You get your hair done?
and Ron was going to be picking me up in a little bit, and I was sitting in a director's chair outside the salon, because now there are all these limitations about how many people can be in there together at one time. And there's a dress shop next to the salon, and the woman who owns the dress shop has the most adorable little Prince Charles Spaniel. And so it came to the door, though it was closed, and was sitting there just loving me up and just so sweet and adorable. The woman came out, brought the dog out. We had the most little enjoyable love fest, and they went back inside. And then there was a man who was cleaning the windows of the salon. He was an older man, not terribly old, but he also was dealing with a physical condition of some sort. And he said something to me, and I asked him to repeat it. And he said to me, "Are you Polish?" And I said to him, "Well, no, I don't happen to be Polish." But he launched into a story that he was seeking to find some kind of documentation about a Polish man who had been a savant, who had helped some great man accomplish something. And he had more specific references to it than that. But as he was sharing with me, inside of me, it was like, just be present with this man, just be with him. And it was such a beautiful encounter, because what I was aware of was that, like, his whole story was present in the microcosm of this that he was searching for. And as he shared with me, I became aware this man is a savant. And he is looking for this accomplishment of this other man, because it's somehow in validating his contribution, and that would validate his own worth. It was just this incredible soul to soul kind of moment and connection and knowing that I experienced with him. And, one of the things that I just invite you to consider, did something happen at some point where you felt it was necessary to either buffer yourself or protect yourself, insulate yourself, that it wasn't really perhaps either acceptable or safe or perhaps even comfortable to allow yourself to really experience the flow of the love that is your natural state inside of you?
Well, it's an interesting, I've been looking at that because there's like, I know that I don't know if you, oh, that was weird. That's kind of distracting. Somebody switched something with the video, so I just like threw me off there.
You're okay on this end.
Yeah, well, they just changed my monitor or something. So, I know my mom, Millicent, and
Yes.
and you could imagine she might have been a challenging mother. So I've been looking at that relationship. I've been looking at that, and I know that part of it was like when I was growing up, like I was like, I've always been more a very sensitive, empathic person, and I tried to be something else, because I was trying to fit in. There's a part of me that wants to fit in and be part of with humanity and connect, and I'm also have a very strong mental side that's like really mind going very fast, and I've been really slowing down. One of the great things about this COVID thing is I'm not like driving around and doing production and having all that craziness, and I'm like really using that, do more SCs and do all that, the things that support going deeper in. But what I really, and in terms of looking backwards, part of it was like they were just kids that the kids I hung out with were all like the jocks, and like there was that competitiveness, and I sucked at it, like I had like the quarterback and the all, like the main players from several teams, and they just picked the shit on me all the time, and I was not prepared to deal with that. And it was, my mom tells a really, just very short, as a quick story, that she saw me like a kid was like on top of me, was like 5, 6 years old, and the kid was hitting me, and she goes, "Well, why didn't you hit him back?" And I said, "Well, I didn't really want to hurt him." And it's like, that's kind of my nature, which is, here I am now, a minister trying to practice ahimsa. So, that's really more like a tune, like I'm moving, that's where I'm trying to move with, using the external situations in our country and just my life, and really, and thus less like to eliminate violence towards myself, not actually physical violence, but inner violence. So,
Sure.
but I've just felt like that, and even the business I was in, I work with Teamsters, I have to control large productions with, and there's a certain level of like that same thing of like waiting to be picked for the team. You do a great job and the next job to get somebody else, all that kind of stuff, all the jocularity is not the world I want to live in. I'm not a guy who likes to go to baseball games. I like other sports, but I don't like large crowds because of the empathy. But I'm really trying to be more authentic in myself and really present with who I am and present with other people. I know a lot of people who are really good at reaching in and communicating amazingly with people. Some of them are mutual friends or, facilitators and all that kind of thing. And I really have the awareness, but I'm still looking at how to like keep my focus, like my presence and with loving and listening more inwardly.
Well, hearing what you're sharing, I would suspect from what you said that some of those early experiences not only were difficult, but were painful, Mitchell.
Very.
Because being empathic, being sensitive, feeling in some way perhaps out of sync with at least some of your peers, it can lead to a process of self-judgment and somehow an idea that somehow you should be different from the way that you are in order to fit in or be accepted. And I would just suggest to you that what the world needs at this time is more people who are aware of their hearts, who experience compassion, who have receptivity and attunement to others, and that perhaps the opportunity here, at least one of them, is to let go of the judgments that you placed against yourself so long ago, that somehow you didn't belong, you didn't fit in, that your way of being was less valuable or less worthy. My words may not quite say how it was inside of you, but perhaps they're in the direction.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Part of it also is like a judgment against the world that I have. I always like my psychology professor from college, I saw at a reunion, she said, yeah, when you were a freshman, you were in my class and you told me how you thought I should teach the class or some correction. And, like there's a lot of ego correcting I've been doing, this is like a lot of work where I'm just like at a point where I've given myself, I've taken the movement towards being vulnerable and being free to speak about what's true for me rather than like, I'm a storyteller, so I own that too, but I'm trying to like really get to, it's like there's a part of me that says, the voice says, just keep focusing on the light, keep focusing on the positive direction. But, there's always that, that dragging down kind of, when there's that weight there. And I'm trying to free myself from that's, and I know that,
I know this is going to sound self-serving, but if you can do it, I would really encourage you to come into the upcoming class, because everything you say is accurate. USM is all about providing you not only with the skills, but the opportunity to use the skills in the classroom so that you can experience how they work and then go out and work them in the world.
well, I really get that. And one of my challenges right now is, my business is pretty much shut down. I've had a few little jobs, but I'm really like, there's just, like me and my friends are all, so I'm like challenged financially.
See, right now you're doing a variation of the very thing I'm talking about. you're telling us a negative story about why something can't work.
Mhm.
And I'm suggesting that you don't know that any of that is true. I mean, the things that you're saying are true, but you don't know if the net result of all of that is that it precludes you from participating. You don't know that.
Yeah, I've been looking at that like just I have been like going inside going, okay, how is this going to manifest? How do I go and
You
See,
know,
that's not really what you have to be concerned with. It's not up to you to manifest it. It's up to you to tell a positive or to present yourself in such a way, and then spirit will show you how to manifest it. I mean, if you think for a minute, anybody, if you think for a minute that when we came out here to start all of this, we knew one thing about manifesting a university. Really, I cannot tell you how far from the truth that was. It was a total,
get that? Yeah.
what do they call that when you close your eyes and take a jump shot, whatever the word is. That
Leap of faith.
a leap of faith. There you
yes, a
go.
leap
Thanks,
of
Mike.
faith.
You know,
Yeah. You know what I would add to it, Mitchell? We have seen people have such clear intention that they were going to be in the program. They had such clear intention. They saw themselves, and we have heard many stories of how people's tuitions have manifested for them. And I just encourage you to have a clear intention. And I love that you're holding a positive focus, a light focus. And these conditioned patterns and beliefs, you know, the ego, we come in predisposed to interpreting our experience in certain ways.
Mhm.
And in making those interpretation, we don't understand the way it works within our consciousness, how we're setting up certain patterns that then draw to us certain kinds of experiences. But what's so beautiful about the USM educational process not only is the majestic spiritual energy field, but it's the people who gather, the people who come together
Mhm.
to do this work in consciousness, who are doing it to heal and clear themselves, and also to learn how to serve others. Because the soul centered basic skills that are part of the curriculum, and in the first year, we work with at least 33 of them, but they are tools that are healing, they are tools of awakening, and they are tools that help people enhance their interpersonal effectiveness. And the work is very sacred. People really learn how to move into the presence of love and be there in heartfelt service to their trio partners. And it's a beautiful thing. So you have our wholehearted support and encouragement.
something to think about.
Yeah, well, I did the 33-day thing a couple of years ago in the
Yes.
summer, and just from that, I've known that I would like to work with, love to work with you.
There you go.
So
Well,
there's a clarity there.
let's place this into that light of living love right now, Mitchell, together for the highest good. And let's see how spirit works this. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so
very
much for your sharing. Carlos.
Hi, there you go. Sorry.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes. Nice
Glad
to
to
see you.
Yeah.
And
Thank you very
please,
much.
Please tell us where you are, Carlos.
Right. I'm Carlos Argueta. I'm from El Salvador, and that's the heart of Central America.
Is that where you
So,
are now?
Yes.
yeah. El Salvador. Right. So, well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Yes.
I'm feeling
So
very
glad
blessed.
you're here.
Yeah. So, well, my question is about business and leadership. Because I'm in the position of a leader now, and as my business grows, more people come. You know, and as it's growing and growing and growing, I get to see different kind of people: designers, tech people, engineers, etc. So my question regarding that is, how do I really lead from a soul-centered position, as opposed to, because I've realized that the more I'm in my loving, the more I'm in my soul, the more I'm practicing,
Mhm.
the gratitude, the loving, the best the outcomes are. They don't come in my timing, but they
Mhm.
come.
Yes.
But yet, the question is, I mean, the world can be so, um, you know, fast. I mean, I'm in the venture capitalist, game and business. A lot of investors and stuff like that. So the world is really fast. My team is, you know, also, working through patterns and all that stuff. And sometimes I don't kind of get a way to communicate, because it's not like, hey, I'm fundraising. Would you please give me this money because I'm so loving? Would you please give me $1 million to this tech company because I'm such a spiritual guy, or whatever. So yeah, that's how can I really relate my spiritual being with the business fast
This,
growing.
this is such a great question. I love your question. You know, there's a beautiful quote. It was written by a Quaker, and I won't quote it precisely, but the essence of it, Carlos, is that authentic leadership needs to be spirit led. It needs to be spirit led. And so I would say that perhaps the most important practice is your own spiritual practice, the practice where you spend time in the silence, you spend time really in the sanctuary of your own soul, and that your intention really is the cleansing of the lens of your perception. It's to be an instrument of the divine and to be spirit led, to be spirit guided. And that one of the really powerful questions that I believe a leader can ask is, what is truly for the highest good here? Now, obviously, all your life experience, your business experience are also very important. I had a conversation earlier this week with a man whom I've never met. I've been having a series of conversations with him, and he is enormously successful on the goal line of life. And our conversation led me to ask him about, because right now he's trying to resolve a question that he experiences as a dilemma. Should I do this or should I do this? Should I do X or Y? And so I said to him, in order to resolve a question like this, you must get higher. So then I asked him, have you had experience in your business dealings over the years where you experience this kind of a choice. Should it be X or Y? But then somehow you had guidance or a higher knowing. He said, yes. And he told me 3 different times. And he said, now that we're talking about this, I can easily think of 30 of these where it's just, and he said, I called it insight. And insight is a good word for it. I said, well, you could speak of it as insight, as intuition, as inner knowing, or you could call it higher guidance. And I understand what you're saying. You're in something where there's a lot of money involved. You're needing to make decisions. A lot rides on those decisions, not only for yourself, but for the other people that are involved. And so this whole thing of your spiritual practice and asking to be shown and guided what is truly for the highest good, and at the same time paying attention and bringing your business experience and your acumen, your knowledge, and your instincts to it. And of course, doing due diligence so that you really check things out. You check things out and you pay attention to the nigglings that you receive or to the awarenesses that you have when you wake up in the morning. How does some of this seem like it's useful to you, Carlos?
Yes, very much. Very, very much. Thing is, my mind is clear. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Yeah, but I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. And here's the thing, you know, as I see USM and the things you're teaching here, they are so valuable to me, and they have served me through YouTube. You know, so I can imagine that taking your programs could be great. So, and you know, my employees, my partners, they don't have these tools. So I don't know how to talk to them, you know, with these terms and these vocabulary and these, you know,
Yes.
I don't want them to think that I'm crazy.
What an opportunity. What a fantastic opportunity.
To enroll them?
Well, to enroll them, but also to share them. We have graduates who are involved in business. Some of them are very high producers in sales for large corporations, and they are outstanding performers, outstanding performers. And what happened in these companies, I'm thinking of 2 of them right now, is that the owners of the company and the leadership of the company observed the high production and financial benefit that these salespeople were creating. And so they went to them and they wanted to know how they were doing it. And when our graduates began to share their experience and the tools they were using, they said, can you teach our people? Can you teach the other teams? And, you know, it's really transformed the way they do work. So I encourage you not to minimize or disregard in some way the capacity that you have as a leader to begin sharing some of these principles and tools in ways that they can be received and utilized by others who may not necessarily be as open and conscious or aware spiritually as you are. It is doable.
You know,
Right.
What's very interesting is that, you know, as we're offering this new program in this new online format, we are getting more people from other countries, such as yourself, that are stepping forward with interest in coming into the program and wanting to be here and wanting to do it precisely because they have populations in their country that they perceive are very willing and very ready to to proceed in this direction. I will tell you personally for myself, the best single quality. Now I've been doing this for 40 years, coming up in 40 years. The best single quality that I think endears me to people, assuming that I have such a quality, but is my sense of humor. So my sense of humor, to not be so, tight with people, and to, can we, whatever we're doing here, folks, can we have fun doing it? And lo and behold, the more we could have fun doing it, the more successful we became. And I've rarely seen that not be the case.
You're suggesting I become a chief fun officer?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
The CFO.
Yeah, the CFO. Yeah. And perhaps my last question regarding leadership would be how to really deal with negativity. Because there's a way. There's like the unfoldment of deals and corporations, or there could be lawsuits. There could be a lot of things that could embrace negativity by itself. And I know that I can just step back from those and let a higher source take care of those. But sometimes it gets to me, or relationships inside, etc.
Yes. And to me, one of the qualities of leadership that I greatly admire and aspire to is integrity. Integrity. And JR had his definition of integrity. Many people speak of integrity as being one with your word. And JR spoke of it as being true to yourself with care and consideration for others. And I think integrity is something that contributes to a clear field such that you won't be attracting those kinds of things. And sometimes we do attract them regardless.
Yeah, I can
Yes.
testify.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so,
Part of life.
But yet,
Right.
one of the principles that we mentioned earlier is how you relate to the issue is the issue. How you relate to the issue is the issue. So how do I relate to the lawsuit? And how do I relate to what it brings up inside of me? We were involved in a lawsuit many, many years ago. I'd never been involved in a lawsuit. And when it first began, I just I just felt terrible. I mean, my stomach was so upset. I went to my doctor for some assistance, and I told him what was going on. And he practiced, he was an MD, but he also practiced Oriental medicine. And so he gave me a remedy. And he said, Mary, you need more tiger. And he gave me a remedy called green tiger. And I started taking it. And of course, my stomach felt much better. But these situations come to us also to teach us something. They come to us also to teach us. And for us, with that lawsuit, Ron made a file. What did you call that file, Ron?
Steadfast integrity.
He didn't call it so-and-so versus the University of Santa Monica. He named the file Steadfast Integrity. And that was really our benchmark. And it was such an experience, not only of strengthening, but of really staying out of judgment of the other person, And it was interesting. Our attorney told us that he said, you don't ever have to go to court. I'm there. I'm handling this. But we decided we would go to court every time there was a hearing of our case because it let us know how we were doing. In other words, could we stay centered during the hearing, listening to all this stuff that the other side was presenting, or would we fall into judgment? So these many of these experiences are strengtheners, and they surely are learning devices.
Right.
And
Yeah.
just to fill in the end of the story, when the final verdict came, the judge literally threw the case out because it was so far-fetched. So it said, this is just ridiculous. But meanwhile, so there was no transfer of funds or anything like that. But meanwhile, we had spent over the course of the time $50,000, which was worth more then than it is now.
Sure.
And and so we had that to deal with. And then, wouldn't you know it, somebody came along and gave us a $50,000 donation to pay for all those costs. We didn't solicit it. They were aware of it. And they came forward, and spiritually, you shouldn't have to pay for this.
It was a grace action, truly.
Right, right. So if I get all those judgments from all of these situations, and I get to work with them and face them, and send told to them, to my higher self, you're suggesting that a higher source or spirit could take care of the rest, or
let's be clear. We're not saying that God is the great bellhop in the sky.
Okay, that's great. Great to know. Great to know.
Whatever you want, it's going to give that to you. We're not saying that. What we're saying is that you're trusting. See, when you really step in with spirit, what you're saying is, I'm trusting that which is for my highest good and the highest good of all concerned will come forward. Now, that's from the spiritual perspective. From an earthly perspective, it may not look like such a great deal, but that's because we don't know.
Right. That's right.
There's a phrase that our dear friend Michael Hayes uses that I feel always applies. Pray like it's all up to God. Work like it's all up to you.
I've heard that
we
before,
have to do our part. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Ron and Mary. Thank you.
Yes. Howard.
Okay, am I here?
Yes, you sure are, Howard.
Okay, here I am.
Yeah.
Well, I'm listening to this, and I'm listening about, how things you bring in. So as I listened to that, I was going through the year, and I was going, well, this has been an interesting year. And so I'm just going to throw this out there and just see what energy it may bring from you.
Sure.
But the year started, my younger sister transitioned. The next thing, my niece was killed in a car wreck. Next thing is my close friend worker hung himself. His son hung himself. My partner transitioned. I had a massive losses due to misrepresentation of financial situations to someone else. And we closed up a very successful business. And the people I thought were very close to me decided to sue us because they were unhappy that they only got a considerable amount of millions of dollars. But all of that was going on this year, and I'm going, okay, and it's all okay. I mean, it's all fine. And people asked me about the lawsuit, and they said, well, what's your most difficult part of this lawsuit? And I said, it's to stay in unconditional loving to the people that are suing me. I said, that's my most difficult challenge.
That's right.
But, but beyond all that, there's all this litany of stuff And, then we have COVID and all that nonsense to deal with. But I'm just going, I just kind of go, well, okay. All this has happened and it's all fine. As I tell my people when they get upset, I said, well, before this incident, how many fingers and how many toes did you have? And did you breathe in and out? Did the sun come up? And they go, yes. And I go, well, how many do you have now? Is the sun still coming up? And they go, yes. And I go, well, perhaps it wasn't that big of a deal. But it's just this whole litany of stuff that went on. And I'm just in wonderment. How does that bounce off of you?
How does it bounce off of us?
Yeah, when I say all this stuff and I look at it,
Well,
am I attracting all this, or is it just going on? And the old thing, God doesn't give you more than you can handle type thing.
See, when I listen to you tell your story, inside of me, I simply hear, here is an awakened soul. Here is someone who is living in his loving. And what's going on out in the world is very secondary. And he's demonstrating it for anyone who has the eyes to see and the ears to hear every day of his life. To me, you act as someone that we can look to who is living the awakening life. That's how if I were going to tell the story, that would be the way I would tell it.
Well, that's kind of how I feel. And it's almost, I agree, Ron. That's kind of how I feel is that all this stuff goes on and it's just stuff that's going on.
That's right.
It isn't that I don't love the people that have transitioned. It's not that I don't have compassion for them. But that's all just part of life. And it's part of what we experience as we go through our lives.
No.
And it's interesting.
See, the challenging thing is that those who are more awake, it's not that they're better, but what they do have is greater responsibility for the way they go through their lives because of what they know to be true from their experience. And I see you wearing that responsibility very, very, very beautifully. And I think you know what I'm talking about. I mean,
yes,
there's an ease to it. There's no struggle with it. There's an acceptance to it. But that took you some time to build.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I remember you when you went through the program, you were always someone who was really right there doing all the things and really just benefiting from the experience.
Well, that was my share, and I don't have a lot of stuff, but I was just in wonderment because you see all this stuff and it's like, wow, that's a scroll of things. And and I guess there's other stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
But that's my share, and thank you very much for the response. I appreciate it.
Well, and I just add briefly, Howard, you said we're never given anything we can't handle, and that is truly our perspective and that of the founder of this school, John Roger. And when I reflect on all of the things that you mentioned, I echo what Ron shared. It's quite a convergence of a number of losses of different kinds on different levels. What comes through in how you're responding really is your strength of heart and your resilience. And I acknowledge you, Howard.
Well done.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks for the evening.
Yeah, thank you, Howard.
And I'll be calling you in about a week or two.
Okay, well, that's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I don't know how this is appropriate, but somehow if you wish to send Mitchell my information, he should contact me.
Yes. Yes. All right. We certainly will do that, Howard. Thank you. Bless you. Thank you very much. Let's see. I trust that Bonnie or Eliza, you got that note. Thank you. All right. So let's see here. Let's talk to another new person. I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce your name accurately. Adrina Garbon.
Garban.
Yeah, that's me. You can call me Andre. That's easier.
Say it again, please.
Andre,
Andre.
like Andrew, like
Yes.
Andrew. That's the Spanish name for Andrew, but as
Beautiful.
male. Yeah. So I'm from Venezuela,
Yes.
Is that where
and
you are?
yeah, that's what I am right now in Caracas.
Good.
And yeah, every day is like an adventure because basically the basic services uh, are challenged every day. So one day you have electricity, and the next minute you don't have, and then one day you have electricity but you don't have water, or even the internet sometimes fails. So today there is electricity, no water, but I have an internet connection. And one of the things that is going on lately for me, it's just I'm just trying to connect because it's given me a different perspective. I mean, there's like a strong polarization right now in this country. So it's just like black or white, and the struggle, the politician, well, yeah, like in the USA right now. And um, as a kind of healing myself, it's just good to connect to other people in different parts of the world, just to listen different stories or what people is going on out there. And the last 3 months, for different sources, people talk me about the USM. It's not the first time because I have been involved with MSIA for a long time. But the last 3 months, it was just like a recurring thing. Again, the USM, USM, USM. And I said, well, yeah, let's see. I connected the last time. I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And one of the things that I discovered is it was like a clear message for me. Um, my formal education was interrupted because I needed to start working when I was a kid. I mean, I start working at 17, and I mean, the resources were not plenty, so my education was like cut before I finished something. And then one of the things that came to my mind is just, and why not being at USM? But then what came to my mind was, and uh, the subject today is very clear. It's about belief. And there was this belief, I can't do that. I don't have the resources. And it's not the perfect time for me. But then I thought, well, what my heart says. It's just,
Yes.
Mm.
I just need to try. And there was like a connection with my brain to say it in a way. It's just, well, maybe the belief, I mean, this is the image that I got. It's just sometimes the belief is just like putting my brain in a box and not being able to see beyond that belief. And at the same time, the heart is like a more flexible thing. So the heart opens and it can see better. So to me was, well, what about if I connect my heart and I start changing those beliefs and maybe start believing there is a way. There is a way to me um, for participating or doing the things that I need to do in order to be there, and just changing the belief that I have. Uh, Even sometimes, like, oh, I'm not good enough. So yeah. So the question is, how do I connect better? You know, like expanding my brain instead of because
Well, but you gave the key in what you said, Andre. You said, but when I go into my heart, then there's a place that speaks of possibility,
yeah,
of positive possibility, of why not?
yeah,
And from my point of view, you answered your own question. The mind is part of the ego. The mind is a tool really to be used in service to the heart. And so I I encourage you to trust your heart. You know, in the circumstances in what you live, where sometimes you have water, sometimes you don't, sometimes you have electricity, sometimes you don't, sometimes you have internet, sometimes you don't. That's a teaching in flexibility, resourcefulness, resilience, many things. And
yeah,
and I encourage you, those same qualities can support you in potentially finding a way to participate in the online program, or at least some segment of it. And I encourage you, hold the intention and trust the wisdom of your heart.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. All right. So let's see, Jennifer, we'll hear from a grad.
Hi.
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 Thank you so much for calling on me. It's so wonderful to be here with you. And I was very touched by Andrina's share as well. And I sent a message to Eliza about that. But I remember, and there was some conversation on the chat because some of my classmates, Tall and Mike, obviously, and some others are on tonight, and we were acknowledging. I remember when I first saw the ad in the Whole Life Times for USM, and I was still in debt from undergrad, but I was so ready, and I saw this spiritual psychology, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew that I had to be there. And I met with Norm Fry, and it was like, I don't even know if we had like information eaves, but I definitely talked to Norm, and that was it. And I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, but it's changed the entire trajectory of my life. And I'll never have the right words to be able to express what that has meant for me in any way that's finite. But what I want to ask that I feel like is a great, it's related to that in some ways, or at least my spiritual evolution and my service in the world. But I'm so curious, and I'm sure you've talked about this on some of the other events, but I just feel like it's so ready and pithy right now with this week. And this election that continues to kind of hang and dangle. It's like when Tuesday came, I early voted. So when Tuesday came, I wasn't even remembering that it was kind of election day. But when it became real to me, I started thinking what my concern was not so much. I mean, of course, I would like things to change in that office, but I wasn't so much concerned about 4 more years. It was more like I was more concerned about everybody that was going to be so feeling hopeless if that's what happens, and for the people and some of my loved ones that are just obsessed with hating this person. And I feel like the topic of what you made this night is so perfect, and I'm wondering if you could just for a moment speak about that. Just remind all of us about, like, because it's so easy to find him objectionable, but yet having it take our energy, to me, is like we're getting robbed twice or something. So I just wanted to bring that forward and just say thank you.
Sure, sure. You know, what all of this reminds me of, a time when Mary and I were at a meeting with John Roger and another couple. And it didn't have to do with the nature of the relationship between us and the couple. We just knew them. It was more like we both had a meeting with them and we were sitting in on each other's meeting. And he was talking with the other man, and the energy was starting to get somewhat heated. And the guy was getting angry. You know, and John Roger was just sitting there very calmly, and the guy was getting angry. And at some point, John Roger stopped him and just put up his hand. And he said, you know, I really want to hear what you have to say. I want to understand your point of view. What do you want me to do with your anger? He separated out that the two do not have to be wired together in an automatic kind of fashion. See, as you well know, many, many, many people, perhaps the major problem on this planet today is that people have not been schooled in this whole nature of I am upset because. It's if they have to have an excuse to let their anger out. So it's very, very, very challenging for so many people, which is why you have the riots and why you have all of this other stuff. There's an absence of, it's not ability, it's awareness that it's even possible that we don't have to come at each other from the place of war, that we can sit down and really talk about the things that are at issue without having to go into the negativity. In fact, to the degree that we go into the negativity and the fight ensues, we both lose. Because then negativity wins and we all pay the price. In its most virulent form, that's known as war. I can't imagine anyone who ever won a war recently. I mean, it's the two things don't go together. So this is why we stress the working with ourselves to let go of the negativity within. The challenge is that we're at a time in terms of the evolution of humanity itself, that this is the time. It's a 26,000 year cycle called a yuga, Y-U-G-A, and that we're coming. It's time to get over this. It's time to let go of this. So in a way, from the perspective I'm talking about, it doesn't really matter who wins the election, because if we don't change the way that we relate to each other, we're just going to be back in the same soup, regardless of who wins the election. It just won't really matter. This is a very, very, very difficult message for people to hear, because it is very destructive to the person's ego who really believes that their position is right and any other position is wrong. Egos who think that way don't like to hear this stuff, because you're threatening to, from their perspective, to dethrone them. And if somebody is unwilling to get off of that, there's not an awful lot that you can do. I mean, so that's why I say it's up to, the responsibility is really on the shoulders of the people who know how to do it. So, because they can set an example. So when John Rogers said, what do you want me to do with your anger? The guy got it right away. And he just lowered his tone and just had a real meaningful conversation. But unless and until people are willing to do that, and that to me is probably one of the most, if not the most powerful things that USM teaches people, because it teaches it experientially. You teach it by doing it, not by talking about it. And so, and you know very well what I'm talking about because you've experienced it the many times that you have. So, all we can do is just keep doing what we're doing, making this teaching available to as many people as we can. This is why we're very enheartened at this point in time, because we're getting calls coming in from different countries, different parts of the world now, because it's no longer an issue of having to travel all that distance and spend the airfare and spend the hotel fare, and all of that is off the table. The only inconvenience is, you may have to go to bed later than you did before or get up earlier, but it's not like you have to do it every day of the month. You're only doing it, say, 2 days a month. And if you're not prepared to make that level of commitment, well, then it's probably not for you anyway. So you get we're really excited about that. We've got people already signed in from New Zealand and Dubai
And Japan.
and Japan.
And Liza is having calls with people from other countries too. And obviously tonight we've had people on the call who are from South America.
Well, I
So
think what's so powerful about that too is the opportunity to get to know others and other points of view.
Right.
And I feel like that's what I've been getting at the last couple of days, because I think it's so hard for the mind, the ego, to understand the number of votes that our president is receiving. And so what I keep hearing is my way that I think is really, that a lot of us think like there's just it just can't be the only way. And when you were talking about the belief, I just felt like in the very beginning, it was like another very potent reminder of like, everyone's belief comes from those places within, and they believe it to be as true for them as I believe or anyone else believes. And it's like, I think that's such a beautiful lesson. I think that's what we're learning right now.
That's right.
That they're teaching us.
Right. And one of the things that in a way we have going for us, nobody is going to start taking courses at USM. Nobody is going to come into this program if they're not having some kind of inner prompting that says, this is where you are in consciousness. You are ready for this. And they'll come in on that energy.
Well, anyone's welcome to talk to me about it as well. I would love to share more. Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Jennifer. And
It's great to hear from you.
yes,
Great hearing from you and seeing you.
yes, and listening to your sharing, it just reminds me of that beautiful Rumi quote: "Out beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. I'll meet you there." Thank you, Jennifer. And I see we have our Chancellor, John Morton, with us this evening, and he has his hand up. So, John, welcome.
Thank you, Ron and Mary. It's a beautiful experience to be part of this, and I'm so enjoying it. I want to say to Andreina Corbin in Venezuela, if you let me know, how you want to participate in the USM experience, I'm going to do what I can to help you. So that's part of it, and I love that came forward this evening, what we're doing. I'm just thrilled to be part of it, and I don't have a question. I just thankfulness, appreciation to be part of this work, to let those of you who are new and anybody who's been involved for however long you've been involved with this work at USM. It's beautiful. It's what this world needs now. And I so appreciate even what Jennifer was sharing right now in the current situation in the United States. And I look at this work as it's worldwide. So it's not just about what's going on in the United States of America, but everywhere. That we're learning how to be who we are, to be honest and truthful in that way, to go to the consciousness of who we are spiritually. And when we do that, that's the way to bring forward our highest consciousness. And that also means it's the best consciousness. It's the way to do our life in this world, to live it spiritually. It'd be nice if that was easy. In my experience, it's not. It's challenging. There are all kinds of challenges to live a life spiritually. But nonetheless, to learn the tools, to learn the ways of how to live spiritually, it's the way to go. And I'm looking forward to welcoming those of you who are new to this experience at the University of Santa Monica, the spiritual consciousness and the way we are in being true to ourselves. And that's my way of saying thank you for being part of this. I love serving this work at the University of Santa Monica. Thank you, Ron and Mary. It's a joy to be with you again.
Thank you,
You too,
John.
John.
Just a joy to have you join us this evening, and thank you for your sharing. Thank you. All right, Ashley.
Hi, sorry, it took me a second. I didn't think you were going to call on me. Thank you so much for this call. It's just been a really good reminder since it's been a few years since I've graduated. And I'll try to get to the heart of the matter. But I realized I've just been operating within a paradigm of like this limiting belief that there's something that's considered to be like a wrong decision. And I see how that's just played out and in so many ways in my life. And even though I know up here that I can always course correct whenever, with whatever decision I make, I'm really feeling challenged with like integrating that. And so I have been trying to take steps and do things that scare me, in terms of fear of commitment. Like I recently got married. I'm actually going to be moving abroad for a while. So a lot is kind of coming up for me around that. And I was just curious if you had like any like quick tips as to how I can just settle back into like just trusting.
Well, I want to encourage you in self-compassion, in being gentle with yourself, in acknowledging the courage and strength of heart that you demonstrated by making choices that perhaps took you outside your comfort zone. So to me, self-compassion. But the other thing that I think can be very helpful in feeling more settled, and by that I take you to mean centered in yourself, is spending some time in the silence. Spending time in the silence can be walking on the beach, listening to the ocean. That's surely a sound of silence. It can be sitting in your own outdoor area, whatever that is, and just listening to the sounds of nature around you, whether it's a breeze that's rustling the trees, or whether perhaps it's the sound of a bird. Slowing down so that you can be present. In our world, as it is at this time, we are continually bombarded with so much information, so much stimuli, and life can move very, very fast. So slowing down listening to your heart, spending time in the silence, so that you have a space in your day that's for simply being without doing, can be very nurturing and very helpful in recentering.
Okay.
Is there something here you can use, Ashley?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is there something here in what I'm reflecting to you that you can use?
Yeah, I mean, but I guess what comes up for me, it's, when I have been meditating, it is really hard for me to just actually be quiet. It's almost like in the silence is kind of when, they always talk about this, but that's like when the demons come up for me. And so I think that's what makes it the most challenging for me to practice.
When you say demons, do you mean self-judgment?
Yeah, like really like negative thought patterns.
Yes. What I encourage you to do is to work with the tool of freeform writing.
Mm.
And it's a very powerful tool. It was originated by the school's founder, John Roger. You establish a time of silence and privacy where you're not going to be interrupted. So important to have your phone off, so you don't even hear texts or anything. And that you call in the light, you light a candle and call in the light, and you just allow yourself to write the self-recriminations, the judgments, the whatever's present. It doesn't have to make sense. You don't have to get it all down. It's a way of just purging, of giving it all to spirit, just emptying it out. And I encourage at the end to complete with compassionate self-forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's just one. I forgive myself for forgetting who I am. I forgive myself for forgetting that I came to the Earth School to learn and grow and to heal, to learn and grow through certain patterns. And these patterns and these experiences have all been learning devices. They're all learning devices. I don't need to divide them into good and bad, right and wrong, or mistakes, and self-blame and self-judgment. That these are for you. And though some of them may have been difficult or painful, or if you had them to do again, you'd do them differently. But that doesn't mean you need to hold on to the judgments, the self-recrimination, the making of yourself wrong, or the doubting of yourself and the majesty and beauty of who you are.
Okay, thank you.
What you're sharing reminds me of is the person who's on the cliff and they're not really sure whether they want to jump. You follow what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And there is nothing that I or anybody else should tell you to try to make you jump. But what I can tell you is that of all the people I've known and know who have dared to make the leap, not one of them has ever come back to me and said, you should have told me not to do that.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you very much, Ashley. It's lovely to see you.
Good to see you as well. Thank you.
Mitch?
Well, Ron and Mary, good evening. Hello
Good evening.
again. Good to see you. And so I'm just on the edge of the cliff coming to say hello and and just taking a leap. I had nothing prepared, nothing in particular. This is the first time I've done one of these events without my honey, without Suzanne. She's taken a break. And So I'm here alone. And it's just wonderful to be with the two of you again. And I'm just filled with a lot of gratitude right now and great depths of appreciation for each of you and for the university. I'm in the class of '88, so I go back a few years.
Oh, wow.
And as I think Jennifer had shared, my life's trajectory clearly would not have been the same had I not participated with USM. I was my wife's second year project. So our relationship and my marriage came into existence as a result of USM. So I just am really filled tonight being here, listening to both of you and the fellow grads and also the new people. My heart is just full of love and appreciation and deep gratitude for you and for the university. It's very cool to see John Morton right above both of your heads on my screen. So that's a special gift too. And that's really, I just wanted to thank you and wish you well and good luck with the programming and with what's coming up in the university.
Beautiful.
You bet. Thanks.
Beautiful.
Thanks,
Thank you
Nick.
so much.
You're welcome.
Well, my goodness, the evening has gone so
We could do one
rapidly,
more.
Ron. We can do one more.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, is there a new person here? Sharon, are you new? I'm not sure. The other names I all recognize. Sharon?
Oh, you know me, Mary. I graduated in 1990.
Oh, yes. I see you, Sharon. Of course I recognize you.
But I really have disappeared for a long time. And I just wanted to come out here and I'm so grateful for all the sharing that's been going on here tonight. And I do have a question, and it may or may not fit here, but and I really appreciate the last sharing about, the self-judgment and going off track and stuff, because I've been working really, frankly, ever since Bill and I broke up to stop judging that whole part of what I did and what I messed up. And I'm rebuilding my life, and I'm in a good space about that. But in 2018, I went to a Christian church, and I have been, I've been struggling since 2010. And in 2018, I went to this church and I said, you know what? I mean, everything that happened was like coming here tonight. It was like, what coming here tonight was what I needed to hear. And that day I said, you know what? You've done everything else. You've been trying to do this yourself. Surrender at a whole different level. And I surrendered in the name of Jesus. That has been so uncomfortable with me. And I've been wanting to talk to you guys about it ever since, because my spiritual connection, I mean, when I first met you guys, I had zero spiritual connection, but it's transformed my life. And this transformed it in a different way, but I don't know how to talk about it or be with it. And it's been the concept of grace, of not having to do it all myself, was life-changing, because it took away a lot of that judgment. So I wanted to know what you guys, how you feel about all that, because I never read the Bible. I'm reading the Bible and I'm going, whoa, this stuff is all, this is what we've been talking about for years. And I had never read it before. So I'm just curious what you can do to help me, inform me, because I'm bridging something. And USM, of course, you know how much I love you guys.
The Bible, I assume you're talking about the Christian Bible?
Yeah.
No. So John Roger used to speak of the Bible as the great misunderstood book.
Yeah.
The great misunderstood book. And yet at the same time, he was very clear that he inwardly reported directly to the Christ. He made that statement several times.
Okay.
And if you think about it not as personalities, but as energy fields, and in a way you could look at each person as a vibrating energy field. if we could translate ourselves into energy, that would be what we would see.
Right.
And the energies are all moving in particular directions and at particular speeds and at particular vibrations. But yet, it's all part of a gigantic energy field that permits or allows for all of the other energy fields to operate within it, and to do so in such a way that they can maintain their individuality to a degree.
Okay.
So our job is to shift our individual awareness from that individuated place and allow it to expand so that it becomes part of the whole, at which I want to say at which time, but you get the sense of what I mean.
Yeah.
At which time, at which place, at which, whatever. It literally becomes the same as every other energy field on the planet. Just a slightly, see, like all of the notes that are ever played are part of the same music. So are you going to live in the sound of the guitar, or will you allow yourself to expand so that when you hear the bass, you can come together in harmony?
Uh-huh.
I tend to be using musical notations today because I've just recently taken up the Native American flute since I have time on my hands. And because I did play the piano when I was much younger, I have a sense of music, but I couldn't do anything with this thing. And then I was reading in my book about it, and I understood why. Because I was trying to play from the perspective of how I learned to play the piano, where you learned all the notes and you learned how to play them together and read sheet music. Native American Indian flute isn't that way. It can be, you can play it that way, but it's really designed for you to learn how the holding your fingers over the different notes tends to sound, and which ones that you can't play together because they jar. And once you learn those basics, which is what I'm working on learning now, then you just play according to how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a sound for the loon on the lake, and there's a sound for the wind in the trees. It's just a whole different thing. And I'm just loving learning all about that. It's still very clear when I'm playing the wrong note, but I'm just very careful. It's just part of the learning.
Right.
So is this being helpful in any way?
Well, what I'm hearing you say is, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is that we are all operating in this quantum field.
That's right.
Just like that conversation about our election, we need to rise above that.
That's right.
And from that quantum field,
yes,
whether you name your source Jesus or spirit or the universe,
yes,
you're connected. And I was just shocked that I guess it was because I really didn't get it about grace, but I was shocked at what a difference it made inside me to get baptized. And I almost didn't want to go to church because I know those people, baptized people, it's kind of how I, and it was a really big deal to me, but something opened up inside my heart.
Exactly.
Beautiful. That's what matters, Sharon.
See, that's the only thing that really matters.
Yeah.
It's all designed, regardless of what system, so that you have that experience. Because once you have that experience, then you know. Then it's just a question of finding different ways that you work with that experience.
Well, I have a business mentor that would absolutely adore you guys. And we also, and I met him through a woman who has been Christian for like 3 generations or whatever. But he's always saying to me, do less so you can become more.
I go with that.
So thank you for responding, because I've been wanting to have a conversation with you about it for years. So
Good to see you again.
It's great to
it
see
is
you.
it's lovely to see you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
gosh, we went over 8 o'clock.
Well, yes, well, and we'd like to complete with a little meditation, Ron.
A merry
A
meditation?
merry
Oh,
meditation.
wow, merry
All right,
meditation.
so thank you all. Before we do that, and after the meditation, Liza will come back just to complete the evening. So I invite us all to close our eyelids. And once again, to call ourselves forward into that light of living love. And we ask that we be filled, surrounded, and protected with that divine light of the Holy Spirit. And we ask that only that which is for our highest good and the highest good of each person hearing this come forward here. And this is an opportunity for centering in your essential nature, whether you're consciously aware of what that means. Simply breathe in the light of living love and breathe out any judgment, anything that has clouded or distorted the lens of your perception in ways that have limited and restricted you. And I invite you to call forward that light of living love within your own consciousness to flood your perceptual filter, asking that any judgment, misunderstanding, misidentification of yourself as unworthy, unimportant, not mattering, or deficient in some way, anything that blocks you from moving into the full awareness that you are a glorious divine being, having and using this human experience. We just ask that any of these misunderstandings, judgments, limitations, that they be released in accordance with your highest good, that you may see clearly and compassionately. And we ask a blessing here, a blessing to see with the eyes of an open heart, a blessing to hear with the ears of an open heart, a blessing of speaking kind words flowing on the energy of an open heart, loving unconditionally. And this is an opportunity to receive the light blessings that are present and to extend light blessings to all who are gathered here, all who will listen to this meditation, and to those across the planet who are awakening into the light. And of course, that is all of us, each in our own way and in our own timing. And as we receive this blessing, I invite us all to reside in the knowing that no matter how different we may appear on the outside, and different too in our situations and circumstances, that each of us inside our own hearts, inside your heart, that we all are one. And that each of our individual hearts beats in resonance with the great heart of the universe. And I invite you just to breathe in this blessing. To receive it and receive it. Namaste.
So there.
That was so beautiful, Mary. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ron and Mary. What an incredible evening this has been. I just, each of these evenings to me seems to go deeper and deeper and higher and higher. And I just, I'm so privileged and honored to be here with you all. And I just am very present to the coming together of this grad community in the chat, who was just so ready to talk about this education and how much it has changed and impacted their life. And for all the newcomers who shared so courageously tonight, I just thank you for coming and bringing all of this beautiful heart energy present in such a large way. It's just so wonderful and powerful and transformative. And of course, I want to share with you and invite you, to those of you who are curious to read about the Soul Centered Living 1 program for 2021 online starting February 20th and 21st, you can click on the link in the chat and read all about that incredible opportunity. And there's a gorgeous programs page that is rich with information. And I just would like to give a little shout out for grads to read it as well, because I read it and it just was goosebumps and reminders and new material, and it just captures USM and what we love so beautifully. So, you know, those who are curious about the program, please read that page, and grads too. It's a really lovely grounding into the education. Also, if you know that you want to talk about this program and ask more questions and find out more wonderful, awesome things, I love talking about it. It's one of the things I love to do more than anything in the world. So there's a link to schedule a phone call with me in the chat as well. And as Mary and Ron shared earlier, it's so fun to talk to everybody and see who's coming forward. And I have calls with Qatar and Mumbai tomorrow, I believe. So that's cool too. It's just been awesome, and it's so exciting. And I would love to speak with you and anybody who expressed wanting to come but not knowing how tonight. Call me. I love to talk about that too. And of course, for those of you who aren't currently on our mailing list, we will be having another one of these wonderful evenings in the future. The date is TBD, and we don't want you to miss it. So click and sign up to be on our mailing list so we can be sure to send you all of our announcements about these wonderful evenings and upcoming offerings. I think I covered it, and I love you. And thank you. And I love you.
Beautiful, Eliza. Thank you so much. Love and blessings to everyone. Thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to unmute you guys so you can say good night, and we love you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Blessings.
For us, it's a
Good
good
night.
morning.
Good night.
Love
Love you
you.
all.
For
Thank you,
us,
Ron and Mary.
bye. It's just
Thank
the
you, Ron and Mary.
Love you, Ron and
Thank you.
Mary.
Bye bye.
Gracias. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Love you.
Ciao.
Good night, everybody. Love you. God bless you.
Kevin. Good night, Bruce Kevin.
Love.
Thank you.
Good night,
Love,
everyone.
love, love.
Great to see you all.
Thank you.
Class of
Bye.
1981.
Woo!
Sí, cosa, ¿no? Oye, lo que te iba a decir era que
Good night, Miriam.
Ciao.
ya borré algunas cosas que puse
Oh, Miriam, yay.
y no hay forma.
Class of 1981.
Y